Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here to wrap up 2024 and talk to you about my favorite books that I read this year. I read a total of 37 books, and today I'll be talking about my 10 favorites, counting down from 10 to 1. I enjoy watching those videos the most, so I thought I would put a video of this nature together. Out of the 10 best books that I read, numbers 10 to 8 received 4 stars. Numbers 7 to 4 received 4.5 stars. And numbers 3 to 1 received a perfect 5 stars. Let's hop right into it. And it was really a close call as to what I was going to put into the top 10. Because number 11 and 12, especially number 11 really came close. But number 10 was one that is quite something as to why I put it in, because I had more complexity thinking about this book than anything else that I've read. Perhaps more so than Dr. Rat by William Kotzwinkle back in 2011. But number 10 on my list is Another Kingdom by Andrew Klavan. It is the first in a trilogy, and it pertains to Austin Lively, who is a screenwriter involved in a Walter Mitty-esque situation where he's given a lot of trouble in LA and then ends up getting himself into even more trouble when he gets transported to Galiana, and he goes back and forth into each world. But taken for this face value, this is quite an agitating story because it's a very general story. The characters are not likable. Austin Lively is not a very likable character. But what really sticks out is the message, the way that it honestly, or what we speculate is happening behind the scenes as far as special interests in Hollywood are concerned. People like Serge Orozco are as antagonizing as just about... They're more antagonizing than any of your major villains that you would come across in any form of media. But it's just the building of the dystopia and the way that it makes you think beyond the text is what gives this book strength. And I'm definitely inclined to check out the rest of the series. Number 9 on my list is After the First Death by Robert Cormier. I'm glad that I have been able to return to Cormier's work, and in this particular book, we follow 2 different stories. The odd-numbered chapters follow a general's son who is responding to the events that are taking place and the mission that his general father is setting him out to accomplish. And then in the even-numbered chapters, which are more direct to the plot at hand, pertain to 4 terrorists that hijack a bus, which include a teenage girl as a bus driver and passengers that are young children on their way to summer day camp. This book really delves into the psyche of the mind of a terrorist, which is a very bold expedition. And while 3 of them are experienced and they seem to be set with what is going on, Miro is up and coming and wants to have his first big moment. But there are a lot of complexities that are going on in his mind, and you can see that from his perspective. And a key quote that covers this mentality can be found on page 171, and that is, She said nothing for a moment. She was really sad for him, the way it's possible to feel for something you do not understand. He was still a monster, of course, but who made him a monster? The world. His world. Who was guilty then? The monster or the world that created it? This really speaks a lot about why it is that terrorists act the way they do. I think that why really gives us a greater understanding than what and how. Ultimately, this book reflects on the fact that about the greater picture of what a standoff results in, and that the ones that end up paying for it are the innocent people, the general population, who are just merely serving as bargaining chips for the fighting sides at hand that are ultimately making the decisions. And that is a reflection as to what Cormier depicts in his works, how they're raw, honest, where the protagonists don't always win, because in the real world, we don't win every battle the way that we expect in our happy endings, where the good guys always come out on top. And I think that that's an introduction to that kind of reading and that kind of view on society. Number 8 on my list is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I read this for the Monthly Monmouth Millennials book club that I joined. I started going in June, and I've been to 7 of their meetings. I really enjoy going to their meetings and taking part in their discussions about the books that they select. I've read The Murder on the Orient Express and The Shining, which we've gone over, but this is the only new work that made it onto my top 10. And Anthony Bourdain gives us insight as to what really happens behind the scenes at restaurants. And this can pertain to both a patron that is visiting the restaurant to eat, or the chefs that are working behind the scenes. And there's a little bit of information where Bourdain talks about his own life, but that's not really the concentration on this piece. And he only brings up things that pertain to the subject matter at hand, and that's him as someone that loves food and is a chef, or any kind of impact that it may have had on his life. He doesn't really talk about any family relations or whatnot, but what he does really give is a very honest depiction as to what we should know. The big one is the fact that you shouldn't order seafood on a Monday. The best time to order seafood is Tuesday through Thursday, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the busy times, whereas Tuesday through Thursday. He also thinks that's a better time to go out to eat, because you would be able to have a better overall experience. Be it the chef is in, food is being more thoughtfully prepared rather than trying to cater to everybody that sets foot. And then he also really covers the idea that working in a kitchen, you have to really, you pretty much sign your life to it, and it's very similar to joining the military on the basis that it's not what you see where there's a lot of space and there's a lot of individual creativity. It is crowded room, very much about communication with one another. It's what you see on Hell's Kitchen, only 100 times more grueling. But I think that this was very informative and very intriguing to read. Number 7 on my list is Yogurt by June Hirsch. This is my introduction into the Reaction series. This is part of the Edible series, which talks about different kinds of food. I was engaged in this right from the start, and this covers a lot of ground, be it historical, scientific, medical, the role that yogurt and its role on the market, the different kinds of yogurt that have made appearances on supermarket shelves. They mainly talk about the U.S. and the U.K., but the impact of Greek yogurt and dairy-free yogurt, and then also its cultural influence, no pun intended. But this really gave me a great insight, and I really became convinced to want to incorporate yogurt into my diet. Have I done so? Not yet. Frozen yogurt maybe, but not regular. But I am convinced to want to read more reaction books. Number 6 on my list is Finally Seen by Kelly Yang. I came across this book on the Mock Newbery list, and this pertains to Lena Gao, who moves from China to the U.S. at the age of 10. She was living with her grandmother, but now she's living with her parents and younger sister, who moved over 5 years before. And it pertains to her adjustments and how she discovers herself in the U.S. I felt that the characters in this book showed a great deal of dimension, and with their desires and their hardships, I think that they're very well fleshed out, and it was very reflective of what you see on the Nickelodeon television show Hey Arnold. But it does carry a lot of efforts to influence. For instance, it takes a position that sees homeschooling in a negative light, and it does champion graphic texts as having literary merit, which, for the homeschooling, I think that it has its pros and cons. For graphic texts having literary merit, I absolutely agree, 110%. I've read a lot of great graphic texts as of recent, and especially graphic memoirs. But Lena wants to write. Lena wants to get into writing graphic texts, and she ends up putting something together, talking about her own experiences, and her plan is to send it to her grandmother. I like the direction and the execution that Yang takes with these characters, how she sets up the course of events, and how the characters respond to them. I think that this was a really engaging book that I think that people will really get something out of. Number 5 on this list is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. Like a lot of other people, I grew up watching Nickelodeon and the shows that Dan Schneider produced, The Amanda Show, All That, Drake and Josh. I very much recall watching them. By the time iCarly came on, I was not really watching Nickelodeon anymore. I never really watched the show, but I am very well aware that Dan Schneider turned out being a disgusting individual, and Jennette McCurdy and what he put her through is a testament to what happened. But reading this, I really thought about the dimensions and the forms of abuse that one can have on somebody. It doesn't just have to be physical or emotional or what you would think is directly emotional or psychological. A lot of the things that her mother did were psychologically and emotionally abusive but to a point that she was forcing a life upon them that was meant to please herself rather than them. It felt as if she wanted to see her children succeed, but the satisfaction would be hers. When I say she wanted her children to succeed, her is the key word, not children. And that is different in the way that she wanted them to succeed because it would be her success. And throughout her lifetime and her kids' lifetime, it just was what they had to endure and what she put them through was just a terrible slog that they had to go through. And I think that the way McCurdy writes, it's brilliant, it's raw, it's honest, it's commendable, it's brave, and you can definitely understand her argument as the story, as once you are finished reading this. Number 4 on my list is Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. In this copy, there's decorations by E.H. Shepard. But I thought this book was such an enjoyable breath of fresh air. I think that this is the walk in beautiful nature that literature has to offer that I fondly desire would look like. This is very outside of the box. It is written as Milne is telling his stories to his son, Christopher Robin. He incorporates the interaction that he has with his son, very similar to what you see in Maus by Art Spiegelman. But this is in written form with some illustrations. But these are just very light-hearted, but very lovable and enjoyable stories that pertain to the residents of the 100-Acre Woods. The only one that you will not find in here is Tigger. Tigger will appear in the second book, The House at Pooh Corner. But the stories and the adventures are just so clever, they're fun, they're humorous, and it's so refreshing. Anybody of any age can enjoy this, and I think that the humor is something that everybody can immerse themselves in and appreciate. Number 3 on my list is Funny Boy by Jessica Max Stein. This is the biography of Richard Hunt. He was a Muppeteer that worked under Jim Henson. He worked under Jim Henson from 1970 until his death from AIDS in 1992. But he worked on The Muppet Show, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, as not just a Muppeteer, but as a producer. He was on Little Muppet Monsters, which didn't last as long, and The Ghost of Fafner Hall, and some other smaller projects. Some of them were specials, some of them and it took Stein 15 years to put this together, and she did get shortlisted for the Biographers International Organization for its 2016 Hazel Rowley Prize. And this proves to be at this time, in my mind, the authority for anything you would want to know about Richard Hunt. I think that it provided me with everything that I wanted to know and then some, but yet it motivated me to look further if I wanted additional details on any of the subject matter in this book. Because it did give me a greater understanding, not just for Hunt, but also the other Muppeteers. Though we do get a sequential biography that allows us to get to know his family life, his relationships, the men that he was in relationships with. You do get a very nice look at his relationships and the connections that he made with the different Muppets, and some behind the scenes about his thoughts about each Muppet that he performed. But this probably would have been higher up on the list, maybe even as high as number 1, if it weren't for some slight technicalities, and probably the biggest one being the fact that Sonny Friendly was not mentioned once in this book. And I thought that Sonny Friendly was a very important character of his. He was a Sesame Street game show host that was an alternate to Guy Smiley. But it was still a 5-star. It was still my 3rd favorite book I read this year. And I think that this book serves as a biography about who Hunt was, how he came to prominence, and what he did to make the world a brighter and better place. Number 2 on my list is New Kid by Jerry Craft. This is a Newbery Award-winning graphic novel. And I think that Jordan, who's our central character, he does such a great job illustrating this story. And I think he's honest. He shows a great sense of humor. And I was really laughing about. I was laughing often about where I really was laughing at different things that were taking place. I think that this book does a great job showing the reality of the community and how multidimensional a community is and the people within it are. And that there's much more to understanding other people than just putting on a good front. I think that the way that he writes, he wants you to know that trying too hard is superfluous, and that it's a bigger mistake to not be aware of something or refuse to be aware of something rather than just acknowledge what you're doing and fixing it. My favorite character in this book was Alexandra, who she carries sock puppets. I think that the opening, her very first scene, right here, where she introduces herself just suddenly, and then his the way that he perceives it, where he perceives her sock puppet rather than her, that was just a hysterical introduction. But even she has a very deep and sad story as to why she has the sock puppets and what it is that happened in her own life. But it's in books like this why someone that may be viewed as the bully or the antagonist, there's much more dimension and ability to change on their behalf than there is to a teacher that is so arrogant that they refuse to acknowledge their behavior and feel the need to change it. New Kid is an accomplishment that I really think that's really going to work wonders in the years to come. I did read Class Act. It didn't make my top 10, but it was still a good book. And I plan to read Field Trip soon. And the number one best book that I read in 2024 is Good Different by Meg Eden Kuyet. And this pertains to Selah Godfrey, who is on the autistic spectrum, and she tells her story in verse similar to the way that Ellen Hopkins writes her books. Ocean Vuong did with On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Only, in this case, Selah's story is a bit more organized and sequential, even though she does write in the way that she's thinking. So there will be a chapter where she brings up an interest of hers, like dragons. She is very good at math. But she goes to a private school called Pebble Creek. She lives with her mom. Her pop lives right across the street. It's her maternal grandfather. And there's rough times that are taking place for her within the school. But her best friend Noelle stands by her side. She's a very supportive friend. And she has such a good cast of people that they can. Some of them are. There's a good number of people that are supportive of her, but you also have upstandards and downstandards and bystanders that are very well written to serve their purpose in this piece. This is the book that should be studied in schools, so that students can develop a greater understanding for the autistic spectrum, not The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I like how Selah is depicted as capable, even if the environment makes it challenging to demonstrate capability. I think that this made me feel very warm, being somebody on the spectrum. This makes me feel that I'm in a world where that allows me to feel heard, just like Selah. And it also demonstrates that while it may be challenging, people that are on the spectrum do feel regret for wrong actions, and they also have the ability to develop empathy. And I think that this book is incredibly important, and I wish that more people would incorporate this into their reading, no matter what age. So these are my 10 favorite books that I read in 2024. I want to thank you for tuning into this video, and I want to thank you for continuing to follow along with us here on Literary Gladiators. I thought that this was a very good year. We surpassed 2,000 subscribers. This is the year that we rebooted our general discussions. We filmed seasons 15 and 16. Season 15 has been released in its entirety. Season 16 will be premiering in a few days. And when we get to 2025, we're planning to film seasons 17 and 18. Hopefully I can recruit some more participants, because here on Literary Gladiators, it's the more the merrier. And I'd love to just keep doing Literary Gladiators for as long as you guys want us to be here. Because I really enjoy reading and talking about what it is I'm reading, being around readers. So I'm going to check out some of your lists as well. And if you put together a list, please let me know, and I'll be sure to check it out, and, be it through video or your other, or through another medium. For now and as always, I hope you have a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous 2025. And for now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.